Yo, what's going on, fam? It's your boy back, man, with another video. Hope everybody out there doing alright. You know what I'm saying? Just want to give thanks and praise, as usual, to the Most High for the opportunity to come build reason once again. Man, I've been supposed to come here out with this video. You know what I'm saying? Your boy been road running. Trying to get things done. You know what I'm saying? Moving, but here I am today. You know what I'm saying? With the opportunity to come with this information. So I just want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High for that. So this video right here really kind of came to me when I was, cause like I said, your boy been digging on the whole white thing. You know what I'm saying, and just seeing what it's all about. That's it. You know what I'm saying, and I came across this video as I asked myself, why is the White House called the White House? You know what I'm saying? And what I found, I feel, was very interesting and very relevant to what we've been building on, especially based upon ecclesiastical law and canon law. You know what I'm saying? In this government, these people establishing governance under religious law. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. So I found it to be very corresponding and relevant. Now I do want to make this disclaimer. You know what I'm saying? Before we jump into the information. Because as I've been saying, white means morally pure. As I've been saying, this definition right here of white is what your boy has been finding. These two things is what your boy has been finding to be the most accurate term of the status. Morally pure meaning that you have a divine system of laws, of morals that govern your country, community, whatever, that stem from the divine, right? That's what it means, which is why you see everyone who has this so-called status, they have sovereignty based upon some type of ecclesiastical claim, some scriptural claim to power, right? Some set of laws that was given by the divine that governs their people. You feel what I'm saying? Now, what does that mean for us if we are the ones who receive the law? Because if you're white and you have a morally pure law that comes from the divine and you break that law, what do you become? You become black. You know what I'm saying? Like, this question I was just asking myself, like, there's so many melanated people. Why are we black? You know what I'm saying? Why are we black? Did we dishonor a moral system of governance that made us morally pure? You feel what I'm saying? Now, like I say, I'm making this disclaimer because, like I say, I'm just building, just like my brother Uno, getting to the root of it all. You know what I'm saying? And just trying to see what's up. I am not, your boy teach me to be priestly. I'm not telling people to go, you know what I'm saying, register as white. Do what you do. I'm just, look, I shouldn't even be really formulating it, or concluding anything that you do. You know what I'm saying? You should just be taking a little whatever, you know what I'm saying, whatever meat I give and doing what you do, you know what I'm saying? But I am doing two things. I am telling people, yes, that we are white. You know what I'm saying? Might not have to, because I'm starting to understand something, and I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. But I just want to say that we are morally pure because we are the children of the Mosaic covenant. You know what I'm saying? And two, that if you do decide to go out there and do that, and I'm not saying you should, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you do understand something, that you are establishing yourself based upon some type of claim to sovereignty. You know what I'm saying? Now, whether that be Ishmael's covenant or Isaac's. Moorish sovereignty, like I was building with somebody, that's based upon Ishmael's covenant. Islam, that's their sovereign claim to power or sovereignty, self-governance, however you want to look at it. That has nothing to do with us. We've been building on the Bible and these scriptures. Any type of ecclesiastical claim of sovereignty or power from us comes from the Bible, comes from the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You feel what I'm saying? So moral sovereignty has nothing to do with that. If you've been on this route, that shouldn't even be, you know what I'm saying? Anyway. So like I say, if you do take that route, just understand which type of, you know what I'm saying, claim or however you want to look at it, you coming in. But like I say, man, it just get kind of rocky, man, because when you look at it, it's like, I know a lot of people say those territories that's on the SFA, they won't have nothing to do with us. It's just crazy, man, when you think about it, like, because we're Israelites. We are Israelites, That's who we are, you know what I'm saying? That's who we descend from, Israel. Now, they legally have Israel, or, you know what I'm saying, or, and historically recorded in the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? So it just make you think, like, if they deny your claim in that manner, does that perpetuate the lie of where the land is? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's just something I be asking myself. But like, I've been building with my brothers, been watching. You know what I'm saying? Brother Lex brung out some good points. You know what I'm saying? And things like that. And what I'm starting to figure out now, family, is like, I feel like that claim, that whole white claim, doesn't have to be established by us until our ecclesiastical claim is supported. You know what I mean? Like, until the Most High steps in and supports our claim to power. Then the world will know that we're sovereign and morally pure. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to get into that. Like I say, just rock with me. I need your undivided attention. I just want to make those disclaimers and let people know where I'm really coming from. And hopefully, when you see the information that I'm coming to you with, you'll see why I've been digging in this direction, just bringing a drop. You know what I'm saying? And getting people to understand a lot of things, dealing with morally pure, just, you know what I'm saying, just being established in sovereignty or tribal self-governance based upon what you're supposed to be establishing, which is the covenant between you and head. You know what I'm saying? So, without further ado, I just want to get into the information. Like I said, I need your undivided attention. I need y'all to rock with me. I hope this video don't be long. But let's go. Okay, so first, family, I need y'all to rock with me. I want to get into this. I want to read our country's, or the country in which we reside in, Declaration of Independence, right? And I just want you to keep in mind while I'm reading this, man, and just pay attention, right? To this declaration or this claim, right? Claim, a demand of right of claiming, right? To call out, to ask or demand by virtue or right of authority, right? To call out, describe, claim, complain, declare. You know what I'm saying? Declaration, an action of stating, proclamation, right? Public statement. You know what I'm saying? Manifesto, public declaration. You know what I'm saying? Just wanted to get that based upon what we've been building on lately. So you got the Declaration of Independence, right? Now, as I go through this and we read it, just pay attention that to the condition that America is in, right? In which they are writing to Britain, right? Because they are some type of oppression or trying to break away from the British government and establish their claim or their declaration of independence, right? We're talking about tribal self-governance, right? From this atrocity that has happened to our people, right? Now, I just want you to pay attention to how America is in the same predicament under Britain, right? And look at their claim or their declaration to independence and the words in which they use, okay? And just pay attention how this thing is basically almost, you know what I'm saying, describing your predicament. You know what I'm saying? So, let's go ahead and get into it. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, says the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, to assume among the powers of the earth, to separate an equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them. Okay, so we see what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the laws of nature, right? Nature's God, right? Entitled them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare causes which impel them to separation. Okay, check that out. Alright, so let's get into it. Say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? Like, self-evident that all men are created equal. All men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator. Right? So all rights come from the Creator. What America tell them, the British, right? With certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, right? Remember, liberty, self-governance, self-determination, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, right? That whenever any form, now check this out, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the rights of the people to alter or abolish it, or to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Alright. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for the light and transient cause, and accordingly all experience have shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Very interesting what these people are saying, right? Okay, so say, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Let's get despotism. Okay, despotism, the exercise of absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive way, right? A country or political system where the ruler upholds absolute power. Okay, so again, the exercise of absolute power in a cruel and an oppressive way. All right. So, okay, so it said reduce them under the absolute despotism, okay, and oppressive rule, right? It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter the former systems of government. Okay, check this out. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpation. Usurpation. All having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny, okay, over these states. To prove this, right, to support our claim or declaration, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Okay, so now check this out. Listen to what they're saying now. They say he has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right of inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual. Now check that out. Now he has called together legislative bodies to places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them in compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with many firmness his invasions on the rights of people. He has refused for a long time, after such delusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion. Niggas in the hood know about that. From without or convulsion within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of the new appropriations of land. He has obstructed administration of justice by refusing his access to law for his establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges depend on his will alone for the tenders of their office and the amount and payment of their salary. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislators. Doesn't that sound like martial law? Right? In times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators. Like, is that happening to you? Is that happening in your hood? You know, let's keep reading. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Let me read that again. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Wow, that's martial law right there. He has combined. So America is complaining about martial law right now. Okay. He has combined with others to the subject of he has combined with others to subject us to a judicial jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, and unacknowledged by our laws, given his assent to their acts of pretend legislation. Bam, that's crazy. All right, the quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, right? For protecting them by a mock trial for punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitant of these states, for protecting them by a mock trial for punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. What? If we was to, I don't even think we gotta write a declaration. Or we could just use this one. Nah, but for real though, continuing, let me see, what was we at? For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. I don't think they did that to Haiti. I don't know. Anyway, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. For abolishing the free system of the English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it as at once an example to fit instrument for inducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Okay. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, okay, altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Wow. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Wow, I'm going to read that one. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy to the head of a civilized nation. Wow. He nut the pot to call the kettle black. And no, real though. He has constrained our fellow citizens to take captive on the high seas, to bear arms against the country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, who whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Wow. Ain't that crazy? Okay, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have always been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may be a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor we have been wanting in attentions of our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislation to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity with which denounce our separation, okay, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind enemies in war, in peace friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name of the authority of the good peoples of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown, that all political connection between them and the states of Great Britain is ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, alright, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do, right? Bam. Okay. Now this is the most important sentence to me. Not the most important sentence, but this is going to tie into a lot what we're going to be talking about today, right? It says, and for the support of this declaration, right? And for the support of this declaration, because this claim, when you make this claim, man, like I've been saying, it has to be supported. Like if you're making a divine claim to self-governance, people need to see the divinity, right? And the honorableness in your claim. They need to see that a moral set of laws have been set. You have been established by nature or God, right? You feel what I'm saying? So now check out what they say. And for the support of this declaration, right? This claim, this declaration, this complaint, right? With a with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. Bam. That's key right there. So it says, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, right? And their sacred honor that they pledge to the protection of this concept right here, right? And the support of their claim or their declaration is based upon the protection of this term, right? Divine providence. So let's dig into that. Alright, so before we get into etymology, I just wanted to give you this wiki tab on divine providence. In theology, divine providence or just providence, now that's important because even in the etymology, it'll tell you that providence is short for divine providence. So see, that's like, that's why it's good to dig into these words, man, because you see that they actually have certain references and meanings that you might not have known. Like just looking at the word providence, you might not know that it has some type of divine reference. But that's the importance of, digging on these words. And when somebody is speaking in this legalese language and, this little forked tongue, understand, like they might be talking about something that, you might be thinking of something else. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, in theology, right, divine providence or just providence, right, either one, is God's intervention in the world. Wow, look at that. Remember we've been talking about ecclesiastical, claim, one nation under God, God being the authority or the ruler over your nation, okay. The term divine providence, usually capitalized, is also used as a title of God. A distinction is usually made between general providence, which refers to God's continuous upholding the existence and natural order of the universe, and special providence, okay? Pay attention to that, special, because that's going to come up, right? So in special providence, which refers to God's extraordinary intervention in the life of the people. Now I want y'all to, man, take notes, write that down or whatever, man, because that's going to come, that's going to be very important, when we dig into why the White House is called the White House and what happened in that time, So miracles generally fall in the latter category. Okay, so remember, special providence, right, which refers to God's extraordinary intervention in the life of the people, right? Special providence, basically, God stepping in and establishing someone's ecclesiastical claim of self-governance, right? Okay, etymology. The word from Latin, providentia, foresight, prudence, right? Ahead, videre, to see. The current use of the word has a sense of knowledge of the future. Okay, knowledge of the future or omniscience, understood as an attribute of God. All right. So let's go to the etymology, right? So you get just providence, right? And you get late 14th century foresight, prudent, anticipation. Okay, divine providence, foresight. Alright, and directly from Latin provincial, foresight, precaution, foreknowledge, providentum, present principle of provide. Okay, let's see here. Providence, usually capitalized. God as beneficial caretaker. Bam. Okay. Check that out. First recorded circa 1600 from the earlier use of the word for God's beneficent care or guidance. Short for divine providence. You know what I told you? Providence is short for divine providence. So whether you're talking about providence, you're talking about divine providence. Now check out divine, right? Soothsayer, Old French divin, divinus, of a god, right? Meaning ecclesiastic, theologian from the late 14th century, meaning, right? So God as beneficial caretaker, divine providence is talking about an ecclesiastical claim, right? right? Special providence, which refers to God's extraordinary intervention in the life of people. So basically, what they're saying is, by divine providence or special providence is God stepping in and being the caretaker of a nation, establishing them as sovereign under His moral rulership, right? So, we go back to the Declaration of Independence and see what they're really saying. They're saying, right, and for the support of this declaration or this claim, right, with a firm reliance on the protection of God as beneficial caretaker of our nation. And we pledge our life, our fortune, and our sacred honor, right, to the protection of this concept as God stepping in as beneficial caretaker and ruler of us and establishing us, America, as sovereign with the divine right to self-governance. Okay, fam. So, with all that being said, you have them. You have the 13 colonies trying to establish their Declaration to Independence in the 1770s. So then, like I said, I was trying to figure out why um America, why the White House was called the White House. Now you get these stories is simply because the paint. You know what I'm saying? It's white. Stuff like that. You feel me? But through the research and through perspective, I don't find that to be completely the case. You know what I'm saying? Or true. And when I was searching, and when it was called the White House, I was getting this story that had to do with the War of 1812. Now, when you read about the War of 1812, the War of 1812 is a war between Britain and America, or maybe some other nations or whatnot. But the main thing is Britain and America. Now, so this is the War of 1812. You see, America has now declared their independence to Britain in the 1770s. Right now, 40 years later, you know what I'm saying? You got a war. Like they're going to war with each other. Probably prior to the 40 years, but it's called the War of 1812. So at that point in time, you can see they're going to war with each other. Now, what's crazy is in that you get this this story about the storm that saved Washington. Right? I know it sounds crazy. And I encourage you all to dig into that or just read it, you know what I'm saying, so you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm just gonna read what that's about and just show you, how that is just crazy. And then just very corresponding to what we've been talking about, especially with the new concept of divine providence, you know what I'm saying, in our pocketbook, you know what I'm saying, in our mental library. So we got that understood. Now we can understand what really happened between the British and America and what really gave them their sovereignty, right? And when this White House really was, solidified the White House. Because before this, you get, it was called the president's mansion, and what I'm saying, this and that, and other little terms. But after this particular event, right, in 1812 on August the 25th, excuse me, in August the 25th on 1814, on this particular event, it's when it was solidified that this, you know what I'm saying, it's the White House and everything. So we're gonna get into that. I'm gonna just take you over here real fast, and we're gonna read this, the tornado and the burning of Washington, August 25th, 1814. This is an excerpt from the book Washington Weather. Alright, so let's just get into it. Just, kick back, rock with me, and just enjoy the story if you can. They say during the summer of 1814, the British warships sailed into Chesapeake Bay, heading towards Washington. The warships sailed up to the Patuxent River and anchored at Benedict, Maryland, on August 19, 1814. Over 4,500 British soldiers landed and marched towards Washington. The British mission was to capture Washington, right? So they're going towards the capital and seek revenge for the burning of their British capital in Canada, alright, for which they held the United States responsible. A force of 7,000 Americans hastily assembled near Potomac River to defend Washington. During the afternoon of August 24th, in 100 degrees Fahrenheit heat, the armies clashed. The British Army quickly routed less disciplined American soldiers, mostly due to a series of American blunders and a new British rocket that did little damage, but unnerved the raw American troops with very loud, shrill noise. Excuse me, but unnerved the raw American troops with a very loud, shrill noise. President Madison and Secretary of State Monroe, excuse me, had led a group of officials to watch the battle were almost captured in the confusion. It was noted that the 100 degree Fahrenheit temperatures added to everyone's discomfort. Alright? Excuse me. Say, after the battle, the British Army marched quickly into Washington while American soldiers, United States government officials, and residents fled the city. There were no officials left in Washington from whom the British could seek terms of surrender. Alright? The British Admiral ate dinner in the White House. Check this out. He ate dinner in the White House, then he gave the order to set fire to Washington. Within hours, the White House, the Capitol, and many other public buildings and residences were burning. On the morning of August 25th, so on August 24th, they went in and set the city ablaze. Now, check out what happened on August 25th. On the morning of August 25th, Washington was still burning. Throughout the morning and early afternoon, the British soldiers continued to set fires and destroy ammunition, supplies, and defense around the city. And the soldiers spread fire and destruction throughout the city. The early afternoon sky began to darken, and lightning and thunder signaled the approach of a thunderstorm. As the storm neared the city, the winds began to increase dramatically and then built into a frightening roar. A severe thunderstorm was bearing down on Washington, and with it was a tornado. Now, check this out. Now listen to the story. You feel what I'm saying? And now, when I read this story, understand, from this whole historical moment, you know what I'm saying, especially in America's history, the only discourse you get is this discourse between this madam and the British Admiral. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like it's the most important discourse in history, but it's just crazy from all the, every article or whatever you read about on this story, you'll find this same discourse, and it's only this discourse, this short discourse between the lady and the admiral. And I find that to be so funny, especially based upon what is said in the discourse. You know what I'm saying? And how that's the only discourse or conversation or any historic quotes that they have based upon this historical moment right here in history. But let's keep going. It says the tornado tore through the center of Washington and directly into the British occupation. Buildings were lifted off of their foundations and dashed to bits. All right. Other buildings were blown down and lost their roofs. Feather beds were sucked out of their homes and scattered about. Trees were uprooted, fenced, and bowed down. The heavy chain bridge across the Potomac River was buckled and rendered useless. A few British cannons were picked up by the winds and thrown through the air. The collapsing buildings and the flying debris killed several British soldiers. Many of the soldiers did not have time to take cover from the winds, and they laid face down in the streets. One account describes how a British officer on horseback did not dismount, and the wind slammed both the horse and the rider violently to the ground. Okay, the wind subsided quickly, but the rain fell in torrents for 2 hours. There may have been a second thunderstorm that followed quickly after the first thunderstorm. Fortunately, the heavy rain quenched most of the flames and prevented Washington from continuing to burn. Right? After the storm, the British Army regrouped in Capitol Hill, still a bit shaken by the harsh weather. They decided to leave the city that evening. As the British troops were preparing to leave, all right, here goes the discourse, right? Because as you read in a lot of articles, this one might not say it as boldly, But some of them tell you, you know what I'm saying, like the storm touched down and headed straight for the British, you know, and ran them up out of there. You feel what I'm saying? But now, as we coming upon this discourse, pay attention to what it said. All right. So, as the British, where we at? Where we at? As the British troops were preparing to leave, right? They were still a bit shaken by the harsh weather. They decided to leave the city that evening, right? So they decided to bounce. As the British troops were preparing to leave, a conversation was noted between the British admiral and a Washington lady regarding storm, right? This is the only discourse. And check out what it says. The admiral exclaimed, "Great God, madam, is this the kind of storm to which you are accustomed in this infernal country?" The lady answered, check out, "No, sir. This is special interposition of Providence to drive our enemies from our city." The admiral replied, "No, madam, it is rather to aid your enemies in the destruction of your city." Now, it's so much drop in what both of them said, and I'm going to tell you why. Alright, so what she said? She said, "No, sir." So she like, this is not the you know what I'm saying, the weather that we're used to. Because as you would, you know what I'm saying, you do studies like Washington don't really have tornadoes. It hasn't been recorded, like it's a rare thing. So she said, "No, sir. This is special interposition of Providence." Okay? Interposition, right? Interposition, interposition, interpolation, intercalation, suspension break, and insertion. Okay? Um, Noun of action from past particles, stem of entrepreneur. To put between, place among, put forward. Okay? To put, to place. So she said, "No, sir, this is special or divine." So she said, "This is a special or a divine insertion or placing between of Providence." Providence is what? Providence, right? Which is divine providence, foresight. Providence usually capitalize God as beneficial caretaker, God's beneficial care or guidance, right? Divine meaning ecclesiastic, right? Special providence, which refers to God's extraordinary intervention in the life of the people. So what did she say? She said, "Nah, we're not accustomed to this type of weather, this crazy tornado that done touched down." She said, "This is a divine insertion of God as the beneficial caretaker of our nation." You feel what I'm saying? To drive out our enemies from our city so we can establish our independence and self-government. That's what she's saying right there. Now, you know what I'm saying? Now, that's an ecclesiastic. You feel what I'm saying? She's basically saying like the Most High or God is supporting right now, is supporting our ecclesiastical claim to self-governance, right, by this special interposition of providence or this divine providence, special providence, right? Okay. Now check out what the admiral say. He say, "Not so, madam." So we say, "Nah, that's not what it is." He say, "It is rather to aid your enemies into the destruction of your city." Now you would think he's referring to the tornado aiding the British in tearing up the city, right? You know that, but that's um, but the tornado, well, the British had already set the city on fire. You know what I'm saying? So the city was already kind of damaged. What I feel like he's referring to is something way deeper, because he's saying, "Not so, madam. It is to rather aid your enemies in the destruction of your city." Because what I told you in my ecclesiastical claim video, it will show that if you are set up by an ecclesiastical claim to self-governance, you have to honor that, right? You have to honor the ecclesiastical claim. You have to honor ecclesiastical law. You feel what I'm saying? So now look how the Most High done swiftly made a way for his children. Because when you look at it, it's like, okay, he has Cain and he has nature, right? Nature, God, right? Let's go up here real fast and see if we can find it, right? laws of nature, or nature's God, right, came down in this storm, you know what I'm saying, and drove their enemies away to establish them as sovereign, because that's who they were declaring independence from. It was from the British, right? So then, because right after this happens, you know what I'm saying, you have the Treaty of Ghent. And in the Treaty of Ghent it states that it was signed on December 24th, so about 4 months after, um, you know what I'm saying, this event in August, on August 25th, you know what I'm saying, about, roughly 4 months, 4 to 5 months. It says in 1814, the city of Ghent, Belgium. This was the peace treaty that ended the War of 1812 between the United States and the United Kingdom. The treaty restored relations between the two nations, a status quo ante bellum, restoring the borders of the two countries in a line before the war started in June 1812. The treaty was approved by the UK Parliament and signed by the law Prince Regent, the future King George IV, on December 3rd, 1814. It took 2 months of the news of the peace treaty to reach the United States, and in the meantime, American forces under Andrew Jackson won the Battle of New Orleans on January 8th, 1815. Okay, the Treaty of Ghent was not fully in effect until it was ratified by the U.S. Senate unanimously on February 17, 1815. It began 2 centuries of peaceful relations between the U.S. And Britain, although there were few tense moments such as the Trent Affair. Okay, so as you can see after this event, right, America has now established their sovereignty or their independence, and is now respected by the British. They have a peace treaty. 4 months later, they're good. You know what I'm saying? America is now established, sovereign, and they have the right to self-governance. Now, like he said this is to rather aid your enemies in the destruction, because like I said, look how the Most High has swiftly made a way for His children. Because, like I say, you have to respect ecclesiastical law if you are set up in an ecclesiastical claim. And if God had supported your ecclesiastical claim, then when His children, which are subjugated unto you, when He brings them back out of unto mercy, and He goes to what? Support their claim, you gotta respect that, because you know what? The same God came and established your very cry, complaint, declaration to independence, right, and sovereignty from your oppressors. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like the Most High really like swiftly, you know what I'm saying, like made a way for, you know what I'm saying, for His children, because you know what I'm saying, He came and He did that. He supported that, and they gotta respect that. You know what I'm saying? So when He say not so, it's rather to aid your enemies in the destruction of your city. I feel like that's what He's talking about. Nah, the Most High didn't step in to support your ecclesiastical claim to self-governance and drive us away. He did that, right, so that when He would allow you to establish yourself, so you can, punish His children for being wicked. They being wicked, so He's gonna allow you to establish on their land, and go ahead and take them up through there. You know what I'm saying, for a certain amount of time. Then when He get ready to bring them back into mercy, because as you read in Second Maccabees, like it was talking about the Ark of the Covenant, Jeremiah said, they won't, know what these things are until the Most High brings them back unto what? Mercy. So if you obtain your ancestors' artifact, that is proof that the yoke of bondage has been lifted off of you, and you have been brought back into mercy by the fact that you have attained those things, which means that now you are free from the yoke of bond, you know what I'm saying? And for your ecclesiastical claim to be supported by the Most High God. These people got to respect that, because the same God supported theirs when they made the same cry that you're basically making to independence and self-governance. You know what I'm saying? Just building upon that. Then that's when you have, once that established, we're going to keep reading, you know what I'm saying? But I'm going to say this afterwards, so we're going to keep reading. All right. They say, hour later, the British forces left Washington and returned to their ships on Paxuda River. The journey back was made difficult by the numerous drowned trees that lay across the roads. The warships that lay waiting for the British forces had also encountered the fierce storm. Wind and waves had lashed at the ships, and many had damaged ridges. The two vessels had broken free from the moorings and were blown ashore. The President Madden and the other government officials returned to Washington and began the difficult process of setting up government in a city devastated by the fire and wind. Never again would the British Army return to the city, and only rarely would Washington suffer damaging tornadoes. It was a rare thing that these things happen. That's why she said, nah, this is God coming down to establish and support our ecclesiastical claim to self-governance. You feel what I'm saying? The British Admiral like, nah, alright. You know what I'm saying? Well, I know what's going on. But I just want to say this, after this story, right, after the burning of the White House and then the repainting, now you have it being called the White House. But if we're talking about white being morally pure, meaning you're established in an ecclesiastical manner, right? You feel what I'm saying? You are morally pure and you're honorable, then that means what? God is the beneficial caretaker of your nation. So if you have established some type of ecclesiastical claim of self-governance and you have, proclaimed it and documented and stated that God has supported your claim and ran your enemies from your territories, you feel what I'm saying? Now you are established in a sovereign manner, in a morally pure manner to self-govern yourself, right? And the executive house, the king's palace, is now called the White House, or the sovereign house. You feel what I'm saying? After its sovereignty has been supported by God, the house is called and substantiated with the name White House. You feel what I'm saying? Okay, like they come over here and they hijack, you know what I'm saying, your heritage and your status and everything, and your divine and sovereign rulership over the land, right? And apply that to themselves, right? When you look at American, because American, right, the Webster's 1828 dictionary definition of American, it says a native of America. This is what? This is let's see, 10, 13 years after America's sovereignty has been recognized and established, right? After 1814, 1815, their definition of American was what? A native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals, right? We know who those are, or the copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applies to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So as they established themselves sovereign over here, they called themselves American. So like, where does this white thing come in? You know what I'm saying? Not they're white Americans. They're not white people. They call themselves white Americans. You know what I'm saying? Is that ecclesiastical sovereign Americans or something like? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just asking because, like I say, they've came in and they've established themselves in an ecclesiastical manner. Like we said, once that claim was supported, then you have their chief ruler sitting in a sovereign house or a White House. Okay, so when you look at the President of the United States, right, the person who sits in this White House, you know what I'm saying, Donald Trump is the current President of the United States, as we all know, style. They call him Mr. President, alright, the Honorable, okay? Now check that out, because like we've been saying, white is dealing with honorable, right? Slang sense of honorable and fair. That's what they were saying when they were saying white. They were saying honorable. Because think about this: if you are morally established, if you have a government that is established based upon a moral law that was given by some divine God, then a person would have, you know what I'm saying, more comfortability dealing with you in law or in commerce or whatever, because they know that there is some type of moral, there is some type of divine police there, you know what I'm saying, some divine system of governance there, right? Like, for example, like me, you know what I'm saying, I really ain't the type, but like, if you atheist, you know what I'm saying, I really don't want to deal with you, dog. Like, I really don't want you around me, because If you atheist, I feel like you feel like you can do whatever you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Kill somebody on the spot, and you feel like there's nobody watching you. There's no one you have to answer to. You feel what I'm saying? So there's you know what I'm saying? Like there's no honorableness in that. You know what I'm saying? But if you are established in law by a God or the laws of nature, then you know what I'm saying. Nations will probably have um a better position in dealing with you or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Just reasoning in the building and stuff like that. Um, because hold on, right? Because when you go back to the president of the United States, right? The person who lives in the White House is also referred to as the Honorable. You feel what I'm saying? So let's understand something about this president's position real fast, okay? Um, He says the President of the United States, informally referred to as POTUS, right, is the head of state and head of the government. That's important, of the United States. The President directs the executive branch of the federal government and is Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. You feel what I'm saying? The President is considered one of the world's most powerful political figures, and that's the leader of the only contemporary global superpower. Check that out. The role includes being the commander-in-chief of the world's most expensive military and the second largest nuclear arsenal, and leading the nation with the largest economy by nominal GDP. The office of president holds significant hard and soft power both in the United States and abroad. Okay. Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution vests the executive power of the United States in the president. The power includes execution of federal law alongside the responsibility of appointing federal executive, diplomatic, regulatory, and judicial officers, and concluding treaties with foreign powers with the advice and consent of the Senate. Alright, so basically right there, alright, understand this is a very powerful person. A lot of people are like, oh, he don't really got no power, but man, like, president is a pretty powerful person, like an executive order. You know what I'm saying? It's basically like a king decree. You know what I'm saying? Um, so he. It says right here, he is the head of state and the head of government. Now let's dig into that. Okay, he is the head of state, right? So a head of state is a chief of state. It's the public persona that officially represents the national unity and legitimacy of a sovereign state. In some countries, the head of state is a ceremonial figurehead with limited or no executive power, right? While others, the head of the state is also the head of the government, like the presidency of the United States. In countries with parliamentary governments, the head of the state is typically a ceremonial figurehead that does not have actual guide day-to-day government activities and may not be empowered or to exercise any kind of secular political authority. E.g., Queen Elizabeth II, head of the Commonwealth. In countries where the head of the state is also the head of the government, the president serves as both the public figurehead and the actual highest-ranking political leader and oversees the executive branch. Okay. Okay. So this head of state position would be like the chief or the king, right? Now it said that he's head of state and head of government, right? And right here it says in countries where the head of state is also the head of government, the president serves as both a public figurehead and the actual highest ranking political leader, right? Like a king or something, who oversees the executive branch. Okay, now the executive branch, um, when you look at this executive branch, is the organ exercising authority and holding responsibility for the governance of a state. The executive executes and enforces the law. So the executive branch is dealing with the law, right? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so when you're dealing with head of state, you're dealing with the supreme leader, right? The president or monarch, right? King or queen. The chief public representative and living symbol of the nation, the national unity. All right. Now, head of government, often de facto leader, prime minister, overseeing the administration of all affairs of state. So the head of government is dealing with this prime minister. Now check out what this says. In Western political system, the let me read this. In political systems based on the principles of separation of power, authority is distributed among several branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. All right. So let me jump right here. The principle of separation of powers is not as entrenched. Members of executive, called ministers, okay, are also members of the legislature, hence play an important part in both the writing and the enforcing of the law. Okay, so real fast, head of government is a generic term used for the highest or second highest official of the executive branch of a sovereign state, right? A federated state or a self-governing colony. Okay, so who often presides over a cabinet, a group of ministers or secretaries who lead executive departments, right? Head of state. So the president of the United States is the head of state, which is the chief, the king, the highest supreme ruler, and he is also the head of government, which is the head of the executive branch, which is full of members, and that which would make him the what? The prime minister. And these cabinet of ministers, they play an important part in both writing and enforcing the law. Okay, so these are the people that hold office over you, right? A post and employment to which certain duties are attached, and we know that these duties and this authority is based upon something dealing with you know divinity or God in the ecclesiastical, manner. Its office is dealing with a place or function of divine service, right? So we got the president. He's the head of the government, right? Which is a common title for many heads of the government is the prime minister, right? The prime minister, right, often provides over a cabinet a group of ministers and secretaries who lead executive departments. So he is the what? He is the king, the chief, and he's the prime minister. So he's the king and priest, right? He's the prime minister that has his that is over the executive branch in this cabinet of ministers. Now, what is a minister? When you look at a minister, first thing you get is someone who does what? Minister, to perform religious rites, provide religious service. Okay, these people hold office, right, which is dealing with a place or function, a divine service. You know what I'm saying? And in that service, they do what? They perform religious rites or provide religious services. They serve, right? They render service and aid, and they serve by doing what? By writing and enforcing the law, right? These ministers, right? So you can just see the ecclesiastical religious manner in the way that this government is set up, and their chief, king, and priest sits in the White House, in this sovereign house, right? As the honorable, you know what I'm saying? Is honorable, you know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to bring that to y'all, man, give y'all that drop right there, and just show you the ecclesiastical manner in which this government is set up, and how and what that means for you, and how the Most High swiftly made a way for you to be able to rise up, you know what I'm saying, in these times, and establish your self-government. And I fully believe, that if we do it the right way, he will support our claim. If we come in the right manner, and through the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he will support that manner, because like I said, we received that Mosaic law. Whether we have to classify it right now or not, you know what I'm saying? We are morally pure. You feel what I'm saying? The Bible calls us cedars of Lebanon. Lebanon means whiteness. So if a Hebrew person is saying, he's not saying Lebanon, he's saying whiteness. He's saying you are cedars of whiteness. What does that mean? Why does the Most High call you a cedar? Alright, we gotta ask ourselves, man, why did the Most High call us cedars of Lebanon, right? Cedars of whiteness, right? Morally pure cedar trees. You feel what I'm saying? Now, if you remember, the cedar drop, what we've been saying, cedar is incorruptible wood, right? We know that incorruptibility is dealing with what? Bodies or trees, right, that undergo little or no decomposition or delayed decomposition are sometimes referred to as incorrupt or incorruptible, right? Decomposition, we went over, is based upon what? Fungi, bacteria, and insects. You know what I'm saying? Remember we was digging on the western red cedar? Check this out. It said, Thujaplicin, a chemical substance, is found in mature trees, in these western red cedar trees, right? Found in mature trees and serves as a natural fungicide, something that naturally kills fungicide, right? Thereby preventing the wood from rotting, right? This Thujaplicin has antibacterial and antifungal properties, right? So this substance that's inside these cedar trees prevent them from going through the process of decomposition, right? Making them what? Incorrupt or incorruptible, right? So the Most High calls us cedar trees because we what? We are to be like the cedar trees. He said what? He said the wages of sin is death, right? Go back to he said the wages of sin is death, right? Sin is the transgression of the law. You feel me? He said, I'm gonna put the law in your inward parts, right? Inside you. You feel what I'm saying? Now, if the wages of sin is death and the transgression of the law is sin, right? Then what? What are you telling you? The law inside of you keeps you from sinning, which keeps you from death, which keeps you from decaying, right? Because sinning, you know what I'm saying, transgressing the law, doing all kind of submental things that you really shouldn't be doing, that the Creator who created you telling you that you shouldn't be doing, will cause all kind of spiritual, physical, and mental harm, right? Unto your person. You know what I'm saying? That will cause, like, having all kind of sinful and bad habits might cause decomposition, might cause you to do things to have your body deteriorating faster than it should. You feel what I'm saying? So that law inside you keeps you from the process of decomposition or sin. You know what I'm saying? Which is death. You feel what I'm saying? So that's why the Most High call us cedar trees, because cedar trees have something inside them. You feel what I'm saying? That doesn't allow them to decompose. And that's just what we are. We are people. We are trees. We are Adamites that have a divine moral law system, law code that keeps us from death, right? From transgressing the law, from sin, from decomposition, right? Making us morally pure, right? Morally pure and honorable, because we are tied to righteousness by God. And if we disobey that, we getting dealt with. You feel what I'm saying? So whether we come in a dishonorable manner, we're gonna get dealt with, because we are in a contract with the supreme ruler and creator of the plane, right? Which is why these people who are dishonoring their ecclesiastical standpoint seems like they're plummeting. You feel what I'm saying? They about to come down. You feel what I'm saying? But when the Most High steps in and support your ecclesiastical claim to sovereignty, they gotta respect that, because this is the same country who beg for this right to self-governance from these tyranny, oppressions, and all this crazy stuff that you are exactly going through by the hands of these same people. You feel, who were just complaining about it. You feel what I'm saying? So they gonna have to respect that, because most are gonna say, hey, when you were in that same predicament, I came and I supported your ecclesiastical claim, and they let you go. So do the same with my people. You feel what I'm saying? If not, then like I say, and then which they probably won't, it's gonna get real and it's gonna go down. You feel what I'm saying? But we rising up, you know what I'm saying? We're just asking for that opportunity to be righteous, you know what I'm saying? To rise up in an honorable and a lawful manner, to be righteous and do for us the way we are supposed to be governed, you know what I'm saying? The way we are supposed to live. So can't nobody dictate that for us but us. You feel what I'm saying? So I just want to leave real fast. Why is the president's house called the White House? It says, we all know that Washington, D.C. is the home of our most important federal buildings and some of the most famous national monuments, and of course the White House, where our president lives. But have you ever wondered why it's called the White House? Interesting enough, the White House was designed by James Holbein, an Irish architect. After he won the contest for the best design, they began building the White House in 1792, and the first president to live in it was President John Adams. and his wife. At the time, it was called the President's House, right, or the President's Mansion. So where did the name White House come from? Okay, so, well, when the War of 1812 started, the British Army was sore from the licking they took in the American Revolution. They were determined to get even, and one great way was to burn down our capital city and everything in it. So the British troops stormed our capital city and took it over, and immediately made plans to burn it down. And of one of the buildings they set fire was the president's home. Fortunately, the house did not burn down completely. The house the outside was turned black from the smoke and fire damage. So after the war, the president's house was painted. You guessed it, it was painted white, and the people start calling it White House. And in 1901, President Teddy Roosevelt officially named it the White House. Very interesting. But here's one other amazing, miraculous part of that story. When the British took over Washington, D.C., they were almost unopposed. So the British troops were feeling pretty good about their easy victory, and they were determined to level that city by the fire. And here's where the story gets very mysterious. As they began setting fires all across the city, a terrible storm struck the area, with the wind and rain so violent that all historians tell us it may be the single most violent storm in the history of the city. That violent wind began to rage and rain and beat down on the soldiers, and it was reported that they became afraid, very afraid, and they abandoned their efforts to burn down the city. In fact, they just left. Now check out this last paragraph. It says, "Now we should call it a mysterious coincidence, but not me, and not the people. Then they believe with all their hearts that the Almighty God Himself has sent a violent storm to save America, to help our nation when we could not help ourselves, and they thanked Him." I'm going to read that again. They believe with all their hearts, right, that the Almighty God Himself had sent a violent storm to save America and to help their nation when they could not, right? So just goes to show that these people remember what they said in the Declaration um, of Independence, right? The supporting of their declaration is with the firm reliance on the protection of this concept of God being a divine rulership over them. And when this particular incident in history right here took place, it was their time. They believed with all their hearts, right, that God had stepped in with a special interposition of providence or divine providence. You feel what I'm saying? So, man, with that being said, just with all that information right there, um, you know what I'm saying, being flooded through your gates, you know what I'm saying, I just want to give all thanks, praise to the Most High for all of y'all who stayed with me and continue to rock with me. I want to drop a jewel on ya. I want to drop a real jewel on your earlobes, man. I give all thanks, praise to my brother Peru Salam. He hit me with this link, man, after we was building, you know what I'm saying, and oh man, it is powerful. It is powerful. This is a law. Go check this out. Congress declares Bible the Word of God. Public Law 97-280, October 4th, 1982. This is law, man. 97 Congress. Go check it out. Congress declares the Bible the Word of God. Joint resolution. Authorizing and requesting the President to proclaim 1983 the year of the Bible. Whereas the Bible, the Word of God, has made a unique contribution in the shaping of the United States as a distinctive and a blessed nation of people, whereas deeply held religious convictions springing from the Holy Scriptures led to the early settlement of our nation. Ooh, look at that. Whereas deeply held religious convictions springing from the Holy Scriptures led to the early settlement of our nation. Tell you, man, this nation is built upon this ecclesiastical manuscript. Whereas biblical teachings inspired concepts of civil government that are contained in our Declaration of Independence. Look at that. Whereas biblical teachings inspired concepts of civil government that are contained in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Alright? Whereas many of our great national leaders, among them President Washington, Jackson, Lincoln, and Wilson, paid tribute to the surpassing influence of the Bible in our country's development. Oh yeah, they did too. As in the words of President Jackson, that the Bible is the rock on which our republic rests. Okay, so the Bible is the rock on which they have built their house, right? Ain't that something? Whereas the history of our nation clearly illustrates the value of voluntarily applying the teachings of the scriptures in the lives of the individual, family, and society. Whereas this nation now faces great challenges that will test this nation as it has never been tested before. And whereas the renewing of our knowledge and of faith in God through the Holy Scriptures can strengthen us as a nation and a people. Now therefore be it. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled that the President is authorized and requested to designate 1983 as a National Year of the Bible in recognition of both the formative influence the Bible has for our nation and our nation need to study and apply the teachings of the Holy Scriptures. Approved October 4th, 1982. Check that out, family. Bam. So Congress in 1982, Congress declares the Bible as the Word of God, right? Because they have acknowledged the fact that biblical teachings have expired the concepts of civil government that are contained in their Declaration of Independence and Constitution, right? That religious convictions springing from the Holy Scriptures led to the early settlements of their nation. So Congress has declared the Bible as the Word of God, right? They passed that. They made that a law that the Bible is the Word of God. So what does that mean for you, family? As the children of the book, as the children of the promise,